While physical education is said to be good for the advancement and development of school children, research shows that aspect of education has often been ignored. This is said to be due to a lack of trained teachers. A study compiled by UJ professor Cora Burnett has also found that parents in mostly township schools regard PE as being less important. Professor Cora Burnett, researcher from the Department of Sport and Movement Studies at the University of Johannesburg, joins me now. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
That's a disturbing finding, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really disturbing because it's the first national research that we've done in so many years. It is funded by UNICEF South Africa, and 27 researchers went all over South Africa to go to 72 schools. More than 2,000 children were give their input. So it's quite comprehensive. It's disturbing that even now that we're still fighting for physical education, although the world is going ahead with health, a lot of health concerns, and it's been proven that inactivity, physical inactivity, is the fourth biggest killer globally.
So why are we still fighting for this? What's the problem there?
I think it's also a global trend that physical education needs to retain a status. I think it's also the perception of parents and school governing bodies that there should be an emphasis on academic subjects like maths and science. But if you look at us, health is so much more important in longevity. I think
it helps your studies. I mean, you can't really do one without the other.
No, you actually can't, because there's a lot of evidence that it's good for your academic performance, it's self-esteem, it's self-efficacy, it's social relations. It's really a microcosm where you can find people engaging in sport, and it's low levels, and it links physical education links to sports education.
All right, so what did you find? I mean, how many schools don't have it? Are they just not interested in it? Don't they have the facilities? What's the major problem?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is that I think it came from especially your lower quintile schools, 1 to 3 schools in the township, rural areas. They don't really have facilities, but it also links to some of the facilities that are built for nearly schools. They built it in the quad of the schools. So there's a lot of noise levels. So it's very difficult to have children that's physically active while the classes are going on. But the evidence shows that less than 10% of our school population participate in more than 3 sports. It's mostly...
Is that if they've got the facilities anyway?
Even if they're facilities. But if you proportionally, the higher quintile schools are very active in sport. They've got a culture of sport. They've got support from their parents. The challenge is also they don't have equipment. The lower quintile schools, they don't have equipment. They don't have quality equipment. So how do you take part? And then the teachers, only 25.1% of the teachers concern themselves to be kind of experts. And then about 38% of them percentage would have some kind of training in physical education. But it goes to the university level. Remember, we don't really have teacher training colleges anymore, so everyone wants to go to university, and we don't really have specialist training for physical education as we used to have.
Nelson Mandela identified it, didn't he? I mean, he said sport is a tool for change, for social change. So how do we change this, and how do we make physical education more attractive for those wanting to become a physical education teacher as well?
I think it's a systemic issue. I think it's to face the facts. After 2017, I mean, the world was making aware of the Kazan Action Plan, where they made decisions, and the World Health Organization coming on board, the UN agencies coming on board to say, let's push physical education, health education. So I think there's a global trend. How do we do that? It's making people aware. Like this morning, they listen to this and say, good heavens, my child is not being taught by a teacher that's trained, or teachers don't even teach it. More than 10-12% of teachers, there's just no teaching, nothing happening in physical education. And then there's also a misconception that people have to be physically active at school, but there's also a lot of opportunity for them to be active, but then you've got a safety issue. Our communities are not safe. Our centres, our public spaces. But a majority of children in the lower schools actually participate in community clubs, but then it's mainly for boys. Another big issue is gender mixed classes. So you've got a class of 80, 90 pupils. Now, boys and girls together, girls don't want to participate or compete against boys.
And briefly, what's the minimum amount of exercise that should be done?
For your child, you should go for 60 minutes a day for moderate to vigorous physical activity, and they just don't get it.
Cora Burnett, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And talking to us.
Thank you.